If there's one thing that's consistent about every entry in the Xenoblade series, it's the absolutely phenomenal soundtracks of each of the mainline games. While banger soundtracks are basically one of the cardinal virtues of JRPGs as a genre, the Xenoblade series is on another level with this. Even from the first game, the series had an insane set of composers from industry legends like Yasunori Mitsuda and Yoko Shimomura, who created sweeping tracks using their talents that they've showcased from series like Chrono Trigger and Kingdom Hearts, to the musical group Ace Plus, who brought insane battle themes that I've listened to as part of my hype playlist for years. Xenoblade 1 has one of my favorite soundtracks of all time, and it's so good that it's one of the few soundtracks that Nintendo ever made an official vinyl album for that I eternally seethe over it being European exclusive, with not even Japan getting it. And for those of you in the UK, I am definitely not jealous, and I definitely don't blame the Xenoblade 3 Special Edition pre-order tragedy being retribution for you thriving. The first game's soundtrack doesn't stand alone though, as every game that followed after it continued to have absolutely peak JRPG soundtracks, with it coming to a head with the music in Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Music has always been incredibly important to the Xenoblade series, and while this is true for Xenoblade 3 goes even deeper than the past games before it by directly interlinking its soundtrack with its themes and story. Integrating music into a game's narrative and gameplay is always something that I've greatly appreciated in games, and Xenoblade 3 capitalizes on its musical storytelling in a way that feels genuinely special. But how does 3 accomplish this? From the beginning of the game, Xenoblade 3 establishes the importance of music within its narrative through the use of the main characters Noah and Mio and their roles as Offseers, soldiers whose responsibility is to send off those that had departed in battle. Xenoblade 3 is a game all about two differing sides coming together and understanding one another, and the game's main theme, A Life Sent On, represents this core idea, both in its composition and its instrumentation. A Life Sent On embodies the sense of mourning and respect for life that the Offseers carry for the lives lost within the war between Kevez and Agnes. The theme is the same song that the characters play during the off-scene rite, with a melody carried by two different flutes. Both of the flutes play their own different melodies, and you can hear each individual one when Noah and Mio play their flutes separately. But when played together, the two themes harmonize with each other, symbolizing the two opposing sides of Kevez and Agnes coming together and uniting in a shared and mutual respect for the lives of those who were departed. I think the choice to have not just this song, but a large majority of the soundtrack be carried by flutes, an instrument that the main characters themselves play, is such a thematically strong choice, as it helps give context to so many other areas of the game's soundtrack. There was clearly a large amount of detail put into this concept, such as with the characters' animations actually having their playing sync up with the tracks themselves. But it isn't just limited to A Life Sent On. Tracks like Kevez's Battle also features flutes, which, given the context established with A Life Sent On, gives the feeling that the main characters themselves are spearheading and leading the charge within fights. Even 3's version of You Will Know Our Names heavily utilizes flutes, and the game's use of an adaptive soundtrack that changes depending on how far along the fight is helps lead to moments where the flutes absolutely pop off when the fight is at its peak. This isn't limited to just battle themes, however, as the game uses the leitmotifs of A Life Sent On to help reinforce the game's individual themes as well. The Weight of Life, for example, is a high-energy track that plays only a handful of times during specific cutscenes, and the track combines leitmotifs of two previous songs from 1 and 2 that were used in similar roles, that being Engage the Enemy from Xenoblade 1 and Counterattack from Xenoblade 2. But in the climax of the song, The Weight of Life uses flutes to tie in the melody of A Life Sent On, and in doing so brings together all three songs that served similar purposes within their respective games. There are two ways in particular, though, that really highlight how well Xenoblade 3 uses its soundtrack, but both of them are extreme spoilers, so if you haven't finished Xenoblade 3 yet, skip to this part of the video to avoid them. One of the coolest ways that Xenoblade 3 uses its soundtrack to strengthen its narrative was actually something I didn't pick up on until after I had beaten the game. During the end of Chapter 5, the main cast squares up against alternate versions of Noah and Mio, N and M, who have become Mobius, the main antagonist of the game. At this point, the characters have fought plenty of Mobius beforehand, and I've heard the insanity that is their battle theme, which features an insane mix of symphonic rock and choir vocals that would have been a crazy final battle theme in any other series, but in Xenoblade 3, it sits comfortably as a normal boss theme. Putting aside the hilarity behind that though, this track plays during the first fight against M, whose special ability is to switch bodies with the other characters at will. And during these fights, the song actually adds the recognizable flutes to this theme. Now, initially, I thought it makes sense to have the flutes. I mean, it is a version of Mio that we're fighting, but then after M taps out of the fight and N steps in, the Mobius track plays again, but this time, it doesn't play the flutes. And in my head, I'm thinking, that's weird, but didn't pay too much attention to it as I continued the fight. Little did I know, though, that this track was actually foreshadowing a major reveal, and I was barely paying attention. Because a little later on in the story, it's revealed that during this fight, M and Mio swap bodies to deceive N and give the party a way of escaping Mio's homecoming. That, in combination with the fact that when we find out more about N and M's past, neither of the two were ever Offseers in their past lives. Which means that the use of the flute signified that it was really Mio in M's body during the fight against her, and serves as the first big clue towards the plot twist that completely went over my head when playing the game for the first time. And it's one of the coolest ways I've seen a game use a soundtrack to actively participate in its storytelling. There's one moment immediately following this though where Xenoblade 3 uses its soundtrack to hit the hardest emotionally for me, and that's during Mio's homecoming. In a twist of fate, the main cast are forced to watch what they believe to be Mio's homecoming ceremony ceremony as she passes on permanently from the world of Ionios. It's one of the most traumatic scenes in the game, with the main cast being forced to watch Mio pass on without any way of stopping it. And within this scene, a group of Agnian Offseers play during the homecoming ceremony using the same melody of A Life Sent On. And while the composition remains the same, the track, which normally is associated with bringing peace and resolution, feels devastatingly harrowing as Mio draws closer to the point of no return. I just think it's incredible how the composers were able to take a song that both the characters and the viewers use to find solace in and spin it in a way where it achieves the complete opposite effect both for the player and within the narrative itself, given the framing of it being Agnian Offseers playing the tune. Overall, Xenoblade 3's music intertwines itself with its main story on a level that goes even deeper than the games that have come before it, and by doing so, it establishes a stronger connection with the game's soundtrack. But what do you think of Xenoblade 3's music? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe as well. And if you want to hear me dive even deeper into the themes of Xenoblade Chronicles 3, check out this massive review I did for it.